Now, the interesting thing is that immediately before you have Revelation 17, which is speaking about the condemnation of the harlot at the very end of time, when God's wrath falls upon the harlot, her daughters, and the kings. Immediately after, listen to this, immediately after Revelation 18, 1 through 5, you have the description of the fall of Babylon. You see, she had illicit relations not only with the kings of the earth, but also with the merchants of the earth. In other words, she controlled the commercial transactions of the earth. And you read those verses, and it speaks about the fall of Babylon from a commercial perspective. Revelation 17 speaks about the fall of Babylon from a religious and political perspective. And in between those two perspectives that speak about the final outpouring of God's wrath upon Babylon, who fornicates with the kings and fornicates with the merchants of the earth, is this warning to get out before that time comes. Let's read it. Revelation chapter 18 and verse 1. After these things, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was illuminated with his glory. And then notice in verse 2 what this angel has to say. And he cried mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hated bird. Now my question is, does this sound like a place that you would want to be in? Obviously not, because Revelation tells us that the wrath of God is going to fall upon those who are within this system, which according to the Bible at the very end of time will be filled with demons. It would be filled with evil spirits. Now the question is, why will it be filled with evil spirits? Verse 3 explains the reason. For, that means because, for all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. And the merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury. So notice that the reason why Babylon falls, the reason why she's filled with every foul spirit, she's filled with demons, according to Revelation 18, is because she gave her wine to all of the nations, to the kings, to the peoples, and to the merchants of the earth. Now, we've studied previously what the wine represents. The wine represents false practices and false doctrines that Babylon has. In other words, what leads to the fall of Babylon is her false doctrines. Now, what I want you to notice is that the three angels' messages are in contrast to the wine of Babylon. In other words, the three angels' messages proclaim what we might call the wine of God, but it's not fermented wine. It's unfermented wine. Whereas Babylon presents false doctrines, adulterated doctrines, which means that this wine is fermented. And this fermented wine deranges the minds of people so that they cannot grasp and understand the truth as it is in Jesus. And now I want you to notice, there in Revelation chapter 18 and verse 4, that even though Babylon gives her wine to all of the nations and the merchants and the inhabitants and the kings of the earth, God has a faithful people there within Babylon. You say, how do we know that God has a faithful people inside Babylon? The reason is very simple. Notice what we find in verse 4.